Hi guys, welcome to the FPL Bulls and Bears podcast. Very happy to bring to you episode 4 now after a significant delay because of the international break. So we try and keep these episodes in sync with the game week deadline. So really excited to have two guests again this week. Very happy to have Apoorv here, who's been with for quite some time, and equally excited to have Devank, who has joined us for the first time in our FPL Toons leagues. So, guys, over to you. What's your favorite club?
Hi,
Liverpool.
thanks for having me. So my favorite club has always been Chelsea and Apoorv.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff, for hosting us, right? And we know each other for a very long time, and I've been following Liverpool since I think 2007. So yeah.
That's great. And I'm sure you would have particularly enjoyed last week's result rate against your bitter rivals United. So,
Right. The match was great. I enjoyed the match thoroughly. The result as well, and given that the manager is new, I think I'm trying to understand how different or similarly he's playing to Klopp, right? And I'm pleasantly surprised with what I'm seeing till now.
yeah, I mean, absolutely, man. And as a preview to that particular game week, I purposely got a United and a Liverpool fan. It would have been it would have seemed way too vindictive if I again got a United and Liverpool fan. So that's why I purposely got Devang here this time. I could not have not had a Liverpool here this time, right? I mean, I guess that's one of EPL's best rivalries of late, and at least for the old school guys like us, I don't think United City is as much fun as Liverpool United, right? Yeah.
I think of late Liverpool City probably is a better game.
Yeah, I agree. But unfortunately, I can't get you a City fan, man. I don't think there are any City fans in our league, and I think that's going to be a hygiene factor going forward as well. But yeah, I mean, jokes apart, no offense. So yeah, so Apoorv, I believe you've been playing FPL pretty much since our time at IIM Calcutta, so almost the 2013-14 season. Devang, I believe you are a relatively recent, entrant into the FPL domain, right? So what's it been like for you? I mean, you've had an outstanding last season, but I mean, yeah, just walk me through your journey, man. You started playing after COVID. So yeah, what's it been like for
So the
you?
first 2 years I was just playing. I mean, I forgot deadlines. I used to play for fun. The season where I had my worst rank, I was the most engaged. But then I went Haalandless the entire season, more or less. So that was a
Oh,
very, very bad season to have as a very first season. And then last year made up for it. Uh,
yeah. But
I
it's
tried
interesting
chasing
you
the sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Devang. I'm saying it's pretty interesting you say that because actually, the guy who finished globally number two, right? I'm not talking about our league. The guy who finished number two in the world last year did not have Haaland in his team pretty much the whole season. So yeah, I mean, there are many ways to skin the cat, and personally, the season in which I won the Toons League, I didn't have Trent Alexander-Arnold, and although that doesn't seem like a bad idea today, but in that season he was absolutely essential. I had Cancelo instead, and there were a lot of random matches where I captained Cancelo where he scored goals and assists. So yeah, I mean there are many ways to skin a cat. And if you see, even last week, right, we had our first manager of the month, right, Pratik Girmay. So if you see at the end of game week 2, he was not even in the top 15 or 20 people. I believe he was 17 or 18 off the top rank. And in one game week, he just turned it all around. So yeah, I mean, really strange things do happen. But yeah, and really great to see that you had a kick-ass season last year. Apoorv, why don't you walk us through your journey? I think you had pretty shaky last season, but I think the season before that was your all-time best. So yeah, what's it been like, man?
Yeah. So I've been particularly engaged with FPL for quite some time, but I do things on and off. I miss 1 month in the season where I probably don't make any changes. And 2023 was the chillest I had work-wise, and I could spend a lot more time here. Probably, I think Liverpool also doing well, contributed to it. Given I always have probably two or three Liverpool players in my team always. Last year, I think again couldn't give that much time. While I don't think that changes things a lot, but still, I think I'll tell you one thing interesting. Last year, what happened was I first time I tried to make probably use some data, figure out how the team should be, etc., etc. And I figured out क्या value important है. Let's have more defenders, less forwards because the value there is great. But then I think the rule changes which happened, right? The clean sheets were hard to come by, and the start of the season was really poor. And then probably sometime towards the end of the season, end of the year when Liverpool was not doing well, I stuck with Salah for a long time, and I think that cost him.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, Apoorv, because this year I think the way the bonus point system has changed, you'll see players like especially wing backs, right? Those defenders are going to rack up a lot more bonus points than what you've seen in the past. I think even there's a potential for the likes of even Saliba, Gabriel, even some of the centre backs, right? Just because I believe they've given more weightage even to interceptions, blocks, tackles, and all these things, which always used to be there in the past, but usually. If a defender has not got an attacking return, generally they would just get the clean sheet points and maybe one or two bonus, right? If it was an outstanding performance. But this year we're going to see that change quite a bit. Maybe even losing a clean sheet is not really going to get in the way of getting some bonus points. So yeah, I think possibly this year also we might see some value in defenders. Last year, if you see, was a very big outlier, right? Because they added so much stoppage time at the end of both halves. It was almost like 100, 115, 120-minute match, right? Every match, if you just look at the absolute number of minutes played, and that is always something that's going to go against defenders, right? Especially when they're tired, especially when you have impact subs like some of the speedsters that most of the top six clubs have, so that they can and you see a lot of goals are scored in the last few minutes, right? So like pretty much every match has a lot of Fergie time going on these days. So yeah, I mean that's there. So yeah, that's pretty interesting there. Great
I think
guys.
this time around also probably the minutes added are not very small. At least after the second half, seeing very regularly 8 minutes, 9 minutes getting added.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think just the bonus points, deciding a player just on bonus points won't. At least I don't think that's a good choice. Given that I think clean sheets
Fair.
get 4, bonus you can get maximum 3. So yeah, I
Fair.
don't know. We'll wait and
Yeah,
watch.
we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it shapes up with few more game weeks worth of data. Okay, guys. So this is my personal favorite part of the podcast. Although we've named it after Bulls and Bears, but I really enjoy understanding the philosophy of different managers, and sometimes it can really be eye-opening, even for guys like us who have been playing for close to 10 years now. So why don't we start with Devank, because especially since you have you've been a more recent player to this. So how has your philosophy started off, and how is it evolving as you go along?
So basically, the idea that I'm trying to implement in my team is that as a team, I should get a certain number of points rather than certain players doing well over the entire season. So, like I saw, Haaland was priced pretty high. Like there's been no player that has had such a huge gap from the second or the third highest player pool. So Salah and Haaland are outright in their own brackets, and then the entire league comes below that. So tried working without Haaland again for the second time, and I'm hoping that if I can cover captaincy to a certain extent, the team as a whole might perform better, which I have been doing for the past 3 seasons now. And let's see how it goes around. Like that is the main idea behind my FPL team.
So Devanka, I mean, I really like that approach, and a completely contrarian. The mirror image of your approach was discussed in episode 2 of our podcast, where we actually said, one way of playing FPL this year, and mind you, we said this in game week 2 before Haaland scored his hat trick, before Salah scored 17 points. What Sanjay, Praveen, and I were discussing is that one very feasible strategy of playing this year in particular would be you buy Haaland, you buy Salah, you buy 2 3 other really everyone has a soft corner for someone, right? Like for example, I have it for Trent Alexander-Arnold. I have in my team since game week 1. So you pick up Salah, Haaland, pick up 2 or 3 other players that you really really love, and then just back up your team with the 5.5 million midfielders, the 4.5 million defenders who are not safe picks but are extremely punty. So what I mean by that is those guys are probably going to give you 1 or 2 or maybe even 0 points most game weeks, but there's going to be a random game week where they're going to give you 10 12 points. So an example of that could be Smith Rowe, right? An example of that could be Joao Pedro. So these are guys, anyone would prefer intuitively a Watkins or an Isaac over a Joao Pedro. But I'm saying if you follow this strategy, which is exactly opposite of what you are saying, then you want to avoid the Isaacs, you want to avoid the Watkins, and you want to pack your team up with, the absolute extreme high return, extreme high risk kind of players. But yeah, I think what you are doing has clearly worked for you last year, and I think it's a very valid strategy. And that's what I really love about the pricing this year, right? With Haaland at 15 and Salah at 12.5, you are forced to have a very polar approach, right? Like last year, everyone could have everyone, so that wasn't any fun. What about you, Apoorv? What is your philosophy like?
Yeah, my philosophy has evolved over the time, right? Given 10 years, and I don't think I still have found the perfect philosophy for me. But I draw a lot of parallels from how I invest, right? So I take solid picks, hold them for longer, don't want to change the team a lot. But I think looking at my last season, I think probably as the stock market, the momentum strategy is something which is working out for people, and that's where I think take some very expensive high scoring players and then give some punch to probably small cap, which might overperform. Some of them will, and probably end up covering for the rest of the game weeks. So, but somehow I just don't subscribe to that. I myself personally probably I'll have more nines and tens in my team than 12s and 13s. A lot of probably six and sevens in my team. Um, at the start of the season, I usually choose probably players at different price points so that once you know how the different teams are playing, how the game is shaping up, you can change players very easily. I think, in fact, I played a wild card just this game week, and probably opposite to how I started. I didn't start with Haaland. I thought probably too expensive, and I wouldn't be able to have a stable team otherwise. But probably I'm gonna bring him in, given the shock he has given, in the first three game weeks. So yeah.
See, Apoorv, I have only one counter to too expensive. You say Haaland is too expensive. I say two hat tricks. That's all I'm going to say. Two hat tricks.
So that was what I was telling you was my philosophy before the start of the season. Now that I have seen two hat tricks, I have to bring him.
And actually, it's four hat tricks for most of us who don't have Salah, because we simply captain Haaland, right? So that's basically, we've got four hat tricks in 2 game weeks back to back from Haaland. So yeah, I mean, that's been really epic for us. But one thing I really like about what you said about having a lot of eights and nines in your team, right? Because what that essentially allows you to do is, it's very easy for you to then downgrade to a value pick that emerges, right? So basically, what you're doing is you have your safe bets, you have your as you would like to say, blue chip stocks, right? And then you have some mid caps, which you then quickly move opportunistically to small caps. So I think that is the way you are approaching it, and I think that's a very versatile, very robust way of playing. But of course, luck, just like in stock markets, does play a very big role here. So yeah. I mean, thanks a lot for sharing that, guys. I mean, that was pretty interesting. So now, let's take a look at your game week 3 scores. So these are your teams, as our viewers are going to see pretty soon that neither of you have Haaland, right? And neither of you have had Haaland so far. And the fact that that allowed you to have differential captains last week is pretty nice to see. I mean, it's not so early in a season that people should ideally be captaining players apart from Haaland and Salah, but nice to see that you've captained Watkins, Apoorv, and Devank, you've captained Palmer, and I think it's nice to see that your team structure allows you to have these kind of players. Like, I don't know too many people who have Palmer in their team, for example. Watkins, I think, is one of the big differentials in our league at this stage. So I think this is how your teams have stacked up last week. Purview scored 55. Devank actually scored 67, but the -4 made it a 63. So on that front, just going back to the philosophy bit, Devank, what do you believe, about hits? So is it something you're okay to take, or like, you try to avoid it, or what's your approach on hits?
Being a very new player, I wasn't sure about the team value aspect till last year because players like Palmer kept emerging, and then I did not know what to do with all the money. But having started without Haaland, I see a value to maybe having a higher team value this season, allowing me to have a 12th player instead of an 11-man squad, which would allow me to probably start stacking up a couple of more transfers as game week 2025 starts approaching for the double game week season and whatever follows towards the end of the season, allowing me to maybe be more aggressive on chips or maybe uh, helping me to navigate them better in a way. So that is that is probably the plan right now, to probably try gaining that 1.5 million over the crowd, pay in the first 10-12 weeks, and then take it from there.
Yeah, I mean that could actually be a huge advantage towards the second half of the season, and that is where playing your wild card at the right time. Especially when you expect a lot of flux in prices, and that actually works both ways, right? If you can avoid a price drop and sell that player in time to buy someone who's actually appreciated in price, right? That's not a point
Correct.
one that you've saved. It's sometimes a point two or even a point three, because players sometimes go up by two, sometimes they drop by two. So yeah, I think I think I really agree with you. In general, I was never a big fan of team value, or chasing players who are just about to rise, or avoiding selling someone who's going to drop. Like I have Eze, for example. I haven't sold him, although I knew the price drop was imminent, right? Although I sold Nkunku the first chance that I got, regardless of price drop. But I do see that this year there is a lot of value in having a robust team value, especially because they've really made some who you'd expect to be mid-price players. They are also a little bit on the higher side. Like I think, of course, Saka and Palmer are phenomenal value even at 10 and 10.5 respectively. But just somewhere down the line, somewhere inside, I have that feeling that they are priced a little bit higher very intentionally, right? So probably Saka is not going to give you 300 or 275 points this season. Maybe he will, and I hope he does. But generally, the way I look at whether a person is worth the money is I divide their last year's total season scored by 20. I mean, it's just a rule of thumb that I follow.
I
So,
think that's
and
how FPL prices it.
yeah, FPL used to do it. FPL used to do it earlier like that, which is why the moment you see a goalkeeper priced at 4.5, if that goalkeeper has given you more than 90 or 100 points last year, I think that's a brilliant return on investment, right? Like look at Salah. In his best year, he gave 300 points. He was priced at just, I think, 12 and a half even that season, right? So, I
I
mean, that
think
is like a phenomenon.
there's a metric in the game called value.
Yeah,
It gives exactly the same metric, right? So how many points per
exactly.
price,
Yeah, points per million, essentially. Yeah.
points per million? Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Uh,
mean, that segue essentially happened, because of what Devang said about this year. There might be a lot more sense in chasing value, especially towards the end of the season, where I would not be surprised if Haaland becomes 15 and a half, maybe starts approaching 16. Salah is very surely going to cross 13, 13.2, 13.3, assuming injuries and all that kind of stuff doesn't happen. But yeah, I mean, interesting to approach it that way as well. Right. So, talking about our expectations from the season, and then zoning down into a little more short-term things of game week 4. I'd like to thank Devang for sharing these graphics with us. And Devang, if you could just walk us through what some of these projections are all about for the season as well as for game week 4, and then I'd request Apoorv and Devang to have a conversation about how much of this you agree with, how much of this are you going to let impact your decisions for this game week.
Basically, there's a guy called Ropty on Twitter who does these charts and all. So the left one shows the projections for the entire season, like where the markets, like the betting markets and the fantasy markets, expect these teams to finish at the end of the season. And the right one is for this particular game week. So, and the left one shows a trend chart which shows that if they're performing better than expected or worse than expected from the start of the season, and only Liverpool seems to be doing way better than what the markets expected it to do. And based on this chart, I mean, Liverpool players, Salah, everybody bought them in because of the fixture and etc. So there's not a lot to talk about over there. But apart from that, we see that Newcastle and all have started going downwards right before Champions League kicks in. I have a feeling that once Champions League starts kicking in, and teams like Manchester City, who only have a single striker, like Haaland, he has to play both in the Champions League and for the Premier League. And if minutes start reducing, there might be drop in points also. We might see a better reflection of the data and within the safe after the 8th or the 10th game week. And then we can start projecting it for the season.
Yeah, Devank, yeah. I think that's a great call out that, Liverpool seems to be overperforming. Newcastle's already underperforming. And I like what you said about, strikers who are the sole strikers for the team. So the drop minutes is definitely going to impact. And yeah. So, Apoorv, any thoughts on the Game Week 4 projections? You agree with these projections? I mean, after all, these are from betting odds. So it's always going to be,
Right. So
dicey to predict that.
given that I am playing a wild card this week, I have to look 5 game weeks ahead. So probably not too much to share about this, but I think I'll just tell generally in terms of what I feel is going to happen in the next few game weeks, and then probably we can discuss more match by match what will happen. So one thing which I have I think noticed is there are two teams where probably the defense, there are three teams rather where the defense is pretty solid. Arsenal, Liverpool, and probably Aston Villa, and that's where I think most of my defense is going to be. But given that Arsenal's form of fixtures is turning, there are two difficult matches back to back. I think probably I'll just hold on to my Arsenal defense for a while. But having said that, I think overall, while I think all this adds a lot of value, probably the overall season, the data on the sheet, the overall season probably would finish somewhere similar. But projecting something for the next game week, even with data science involved as well, probably is not probably will have some bit of error margin. Anybody can say that Man City probably will score a lot of goals and Liverpool will score a lot of goals, but what will happen in the next game week? Probably I'm not sure. So while all this data is good to have, good to see if you're making some transfers, digital transfers, but at least personally, I don't give a lot of weightage to this. At least if you're looking at for a short period of time.
Fair enough. I mean, of course, the eye test is also something which has won a lot of FPL managers. So I mean, it was interesting. I think it was a couple of seasons ago. I'd followed a thread on Twitter. Unfortunately, I don't have it handy. Where there was a person who I think finished in the top 10 or 15. I'm not talking about 10, 15,000, but actually in the top 10 or 15 ranks globally. And he had not watched a single FPL match that entire FPL, sorry, EPL match that entire season. So basically, he was completely a stat nerd. He used to just look at the stats, fixtures, forms, algorithms, and all those things. And if you see, that might actually be a very valid way of playing FPL, but I think that really takes the fun out
No,
of it, right? Yeah.
no, but that's not probably what I meant though. So there's a book as well on fantasy sports, actually real money gaming called Dueling with Kings. It touches upon whether data is important, not important for the predictions or the next what was going to happen in the next match. So while aggregate data probably not that much, but individual player level data is something I look at. But I don't project the next game week. I project at least the next 5 game weeks, and
Right.
mostly probably the most important data I look at is the number of minutes the person is playing. What
Yeah.
is the probably XGI? What is the XGC is important for defenders, and uh, and whether the player overperforms or underperforms on this expected metrics, and basis that probably, and looking at the fixtures next 3 4 5 games fixtures, probably I try to figure out what my game is, what my team is going to look like. And I think given that this time you can carry forward a lot more transfers, and usually I don't take a lot of hits. It's I can probably play a mini wildcard every 3 4 game weeks. I'm really excited about how this is going to happen. Probably this season might be my season.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's uncharted waters for a lot of us, Apoorv. I think, on one level, a lot of people, don't want to name them, but they know who they are, who used to, see serially forget to make transfers for 4 or 5 game weeks, and then suddenly out of the blue, Falguni Pathak during Navratri, right? They'll just suddenly make an appearance once every 2 3 months and make some 4 transfers, take a -2 or -4 or -8, play a mini wildcard with their 2 bank transfers. So I think this year is going to be a very dangerous and very potent strategy, right? Because first of all, I think the biggest place where I think this is going to affect many leagues is that until last year, once you have a significant lead over number two in the league, right, in the table, what you could simply do is mimic their transfers, or try and reduce the differentials between your team so that they can't catch up. But now, with the ability to make four transfers or five transfers at the bat of an eyelid, it's going to be very hard to play that mimicking strategy. So I think that is another thing. But of course, that's easier said than done, because it's going to take a lot of patience, a lot of willpower to not transfer and bank your transfers for 3-4 game weeks, especially when you have injuries and you have real bad form, red cards. So there can be a lot of factors which force your hand to make a transfer, right? So with that said and done, yeah, I think that is still
But
something to watch out for. Yeah.
but still, Devang, I'd still want to understand. Let's say, probably for the next game week, looking at this data, what kind of transfers are you going to make?
So basically, my transfers this week aren't based on the data particularly, because given that Darwin Nunes isn't going to play an international game for the next 5 weeks, I genuinely feel that Jota's minutes might be rest over here. So I'm planning to sell Jota for Eze and then upgrade my defense is in shambles. So upgrade a defender and try getting in Robertson in. But if I had no fires to put out, I probably would have gone the way of trying to get Trent in, given that probably is underperforming the most. But if you have Haaland, there's no doubt you should captain him. If you have the money, I don't think anybody has, but if you have the money for him or a way directly to him, you might want to get him in or wildcard him in like you did.
Sure, that's the
That's the only
plan.
direct way to get him in, man. You have to wildcard him. That is the only direct way this year. Yeah, right. Great stuff. Okay, guys. So with that, let's move on to the marquee segment of our podcast. So for the uninitiated, this is the segment where we look at the top 10 transferred in and the top 10 transferred out players. And our expert panel over here, tells you whether they believe these players are going to be Bulls or they're going to be Bears from an FPL perspective. So, without further ado, we are going to jump right into this. Let me just explain this, because this is something slightly new that we are trying out. Broadly, all the players who are the most transferred in, right, they are going to appear on the right half of the screen over here, and the most transferred out players are going to appear in the left half of the screen, right? Now, based on whether we believe they're going to do well, they're going to be in the top half of the screen, and if we think that they're going to do badly, they're going to be in the bottom half, right? And these are just some fun nicknames that I put over here. I'm not trying to disrespect any player, or I'm not trying to unnecessarily hype up some player, but the objective is that we are broadly going to force classify these guys into these four quadrants, and we're going to take it from there. Okay, so let's start with Joao Pedro, obviously the most transferred in player last game week. So the panel over here believes that he is going to be a raging bull. There is a very good reason why he's been transferred in, and the panel expects him to perform well. Any particular comments that you'd want to make about Joao Pedro, or it's pretty obvious that he should be there?
So
If you have a
I
wild
would
card in the bank, you might get him in. But if you're already wild carded, he only has like two good fixtures, and then his fixtures turn very fast. So for Brighton as a whole, if you have a wild card in your pocket, you might try targeting the next 2-3 good fixtures that they have. But apart from that, like probably a tough one to buy right now, given that there's so much competition for the forward spots in their team.
Yeah.
So probably I'll add to that. So I'd rather put Joao Pedro just between Traps and Raging Bull, given that in the past 3 game weeks he has played between 60 to 70 minutes and has been subbed out. I think all three game weeks. I think he's most transferred in because people are transferring out Isak, getting in Joao Pedro, transferring on Watkins, and getting in Haaland. Um, I think, but otherwise, I think he has good goal involvements in the past. Joao Pedro in the last 3 game weeks, I think 2 goal involvements. So it would be anybody's guess how he's going to perform in the next few game weeks. But given his price, I think is immense value.
Yeah, no doubt. And the fact that he's on penalties, right? So somewhere down the line, the fact that he does play reduced minutes, I know it's not an apples to apples kind of trade off there, but fewer minutes and guaranteed penalties, I still think slightly better than the likes of those players like Trossard, right? Who will definitely get reduced minutes, are equally likely to score, are impact players, but. The problem over there is not having penalties just feels really bad, right? I mean, especially for those of us who've owned Saka in the past seasons, where you have him in because he's a penalty man, but then Odegaard takes it, right? So that really, really hurts. So it's something like that over here. And I think João Pedro, I would agree, he should be a raging bull, but yes, definitely could be a trap. Given the fact that there could be some competition for minutes over there, and yeah, Isak, I think a lot of people transferring him out, but the panel over here was pretty confident. Both of them unanimously told me that we should consider him to be a bull, and the reason we are calling him a punt is because, by and large, the hive brain, the hive mind of 10 million FPL managers is tending to push him out. So if you still want to keep him, or if you're brave enough to buy him in this week, then he's definitely a punt. So any thoughts over there, guys?
I think Isak himself mentioned during the international break that he's going to score 2 goals next game week. So that was one of the major reasons. If he believes in himself, probably who am I to say no?
Oh, he hasn't learned from Tony, has he? Never bet on your own
Even Bruno
performance.
Fernandes, he said after game week 1, I'm sorry I'll get back, but that never really happened.
Yeah. No, I think Isak is a class player, and yeah, I mean, fingers crossed for those of us who own him. Luis Diaz. So, what does the Liverpool boy here have to say about Luis Diaz? You put him as a raging bull, and I think Devank didn't have too much disagreement with that. So, what is your take on Luis Diaz? Minutes
So
risk a little bit.
he's done pretty well. I don't think his minutes are in danger. I think the only player who can replace him there is Gakpo. But I think because Lewis is playing really well, probably minutes is not a question. Obviously, he'll play 70, 80 minutes, not more than that, given I have also seen Slot rotating at least the frontline players in Trent managing their minutes, I think, right from game week 1. So if the game is won, probably his minutes would be little curtailed. But I think I see a lot of wing play from Liverpool people. From the right back, Trent passing to Lewis and Lewis cutting in and then trying to score. Similarly, I think for Salah and yeah, I think given it's a new structure, also we're playing 4-2-3-1, and you have Jota up front with a brilliant eye for goal. I think both of them should at least the all front three should play well with each other, should complement each other, and all three will get points.
What about the new striker Liverpool bought? What is your take on him?
Darwin Nunes.
No, the
This
new.
season.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's mostly to manage minutes itself. I don't think Lewis's place is in danger, and I think he can play in the midfield as well. Is very very versatile. Can play anywhere in the front three and can play in midfield as well. So at least just from a Luis Diaz point of view, I don't think it is going to impact probably his minutes. But yeah, I think we'll see how this goes.
Sure. Devang, any thoughts, or you want to move on to Watkins?
No, I thought the new player was to just be a backup for Salah and manage Salah's minutes and all, because he's the only one who does not have a natural backup right now. I mean, Jota can cover, but the other two have good deputies for them. And I think Luis Diaz has been going under the radar because Jota has been playing striker, but then he's actually improved his output. He's in the prime of his. I mean, age wise, he's 26, 27, so he's entering his prime years. It should be a good buy, and it would be a good season if he doesn't keep getting subbed off in the Premier.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I
And
think the minutes
we don't have
conversation
a
here.
lot of good luck with injuries as well. And given I think Chisa is very injury prone as well, I'm not sure whether he's going to get any minutes or not. The last player we got from Juventus, I think, played a total of 2 minutes in the entire season, and he was also injured. So
Yeah. 2 minutes per season. Yeah, that sounds something like Chelsea would do, right? No offense there, Devang, but yeah, there's a whole money laundering conspiracy theory that some of us have in our mind. Probably off scope for this podcast, but yeah, I mean, we're all thinking about it. Yeah, we're all thinking about it. Right. Up next, Watkins. So I was surprised when the panel told me he should be considered a flop. I guess a lot of people have been punished last year by prematurely selling Watkins. But what's your take over here on why you put him there? Is it because he's flagged? I guess he's flagged, right, for an injury.
Yeah, but could be an international injury. Plus, he's not been playing more than 60 minutes. Like the first three games, he got subbed off, I think, on dot 60 all three times. But the main thing is Villa is in the Champions League probably for the first time or probably after a very long time.
Long time. Yeah.
And I feel like Newcastle last year, they might prioritize Champions League way over the league, at least initially, especially in the home games. So we could see Watkins play a bigger role over there, and maybe Duran, who supposedly is a good enough striker, could share minutes, and maybe that might reduce his output.
Yeah. So Devank, you mentioned the term international injury there, right? So for those of us who might be slightly new to FPL, we do have a big group this year. So international injuries, an injury which you get only to play for your national team. As soon as you're called for the club, the injury miraculously disappears, right? I mean, Pep Guardiola has been very notorious for doing this through the years, and of course, a lot of other managers have also followed suit. I wish Arteta would learn from this, right? I mean, we always end up having some of our talismanic players actually getting injured, right? So it's not an international injury in that sense. Right, Apoorv, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm saying I think for Watkins also, I think he had a very short preseason, given that I think he played deep uh, in the Euros, and he didn't, you know, because he had a very short preseason. That's why I think probably his minutes were also curtailed. But he has looked real sharp in front of the goal, and that probably he could have scored in all three games. And I'm sure he's going to score soon. But given that, I think he'll still take some time to adjust to the team, right? So that's why probably maybe he can score well in the next game week, but probably I'll stay away till the time he gets into a scoring form.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not always a decision in isolation, right? Because it's not just about whether Watkins or not. It's about if not Watkins, then who? And I think there are a lot of decent players within that price range. Honestly, I mean, Muniz is not on this list, but I'm still pretty bullish on him, right? Because he cost just 6 million, so that's a huge difference from 9 million, right? So it's a matter of whether you want Watkins and a suboptimal midfielder, or whether you want Muniz and someone slightly more reliable. So yeah, I think with all these factors considered, yeah, definitely, I believe could be a good wait and watch right there. Haaland, I don't think we need to spend time on it.
Yeah,
Again, I
yeah,
have two
we
reasons why we should not talk about Haaland anymore. Yeah. Saka. So, what's your take on Saka, guys? You all still think he's a good hold? A lot of people selling him, or not going for him yet. What's your take on that?
I mean, I think he's the main cash cow for Salah in the Haaland only drafts. Like, to sell
Yeah.
Saka, sell somebody in the 7-8 million like Bruno or somebody you have, and get the 2.5 million and go to Salah for the next 2-3 fixtures. So one of that, and then Odegaard is injured and he's properly injured. Like he could be out for 2-3 weeks. And plus the two fixtures, I think in the long
It's
term,
Tottenham and City, right? Yeah.
yeah, Tottenham is supposedly an easier game, but with Odegaard out, with Rice banned, it could be a tough fixture for them. So probably the next two is tough, but then from game week 6 onwards, it would probably be foolish to not have double or triple Arsenal.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think considering that Tottenham have really been thrashed by Arsenal over the last couple of seasons, especially, I think they will be out baying for blood, and it's not often that you see Rice and Odegaard out, right, of the Arsenal team. So that's I really have a very bad feeling about that match. I'm still optimistic though, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, bank too heavily on Saka at this point. But yeah, I mean, let's see. I have him in my team. I have no intention to sell him. But yeah, let's see
So
how
do
it
you
goes.
think North London is lily white?
Oh no, no, no! It's red. It's absolutely red. There's no doubt about it. So ironically, Devank is wearing red and I'm wearing blue. So someone would think I'm a Chelsea fan and Devank is an Arsenal fan. But yeah, it's kind of the opposite here, guys. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, yeah. But the Chelsea discussion aside, I think Tottenham. I think we should still defeat them because I think as you guys also pointed out, I think defensively we are pretty solid, and then it's just a matter of and Tottenham do tend to concede goals, right? And we've seen this happen last year a lot, where they got off to a flying start to the season, but then their defensive weaknesses did catch up to them eventually. So let's see. I mean, I think it should be honestly from a neutral's perspective. I think this game just got a lot more exciting, right? Without Odegaard and Rice, I think
Yeah,
it's going to be a more yeah.
handicap is not enough.
Yeah, it's a handicap, right? Exactly. Yeah, I think there's just one person in our entire league this year who follows Tottenham. So yeah, I mean, yeah, let's see, Deepak, how
I
this
think we
goes
should
for
we
you.
should try to get Deepak on one of the podcasts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, great. Moving on, we've got Salah. I think no questions about
No
it, right? I
doubts.
mean, yeah, those are both of you have him, so I mean, it's but obvious. I don't have him, and I'm quite frankly scared, right? Because Salah's the kind of guy who can really make or break your season. I think this year and over the last 2 years, Haaland has proved that he can also give Salah, that competition for the title of FPL royalty, right? I think Haaland and Salah are definitely two of the goats of the game there. Guardiol. So I own Guardiol. I'm seeing a lot of people transferring out. It does make sense, right? When you concede to teams like Ipswich, you do. And if you remember the chart, Devank showed us some time back. Over the season, Ipswich is predicted to score amongst the least goals, right? It's right at the bottom of the stack, and then you go ahead and score against the defending champions a season ago, who were champions of Europe. So yeah, I think I can understand the frustration people have with Guardiol. You guys think it's a fair sell? Call, or you guys would? Yeah,
Last year was one of the reasons I ended up with such a good rank because he's playing left wing essentially. But with Lewis putting forward this side, he's supposed to, while he's playing a lot deeper than what I expected him to play with Walker in the team. So I don't think he's a buy at 6 million, especially when you have Lewis in the team, who you can get for 1.5 million cheaper and essentially get less points for more money. So doesn't make
yeah,
sense to.
yeah. I kind of agree with you there. And honestly, my rationale behind getting Guardiol was more really as a cash bank, right? Because as you said, right, game week 6 onwards, I don't have Gabriel, I don't have Saliba, and it's going to be very hard for me to upgrade a Poro to a Saliba or one of the 6 million defenders. I'm not going to sell Trent, so I needed a 6 million placeholder, and that's why I've really gone with Guardiola. And yes, I have been disappointed, as you rightfully pointed out. He is playing a little bit deeper this year. Apoorv, I believe you also had Guardiola last year, right? What's your philosophy
No,
on
I
him
think
this
I got him very late
year?
into the season, right? When I think most of his form was past. I don't have any specific thoughts. I've not seen a lot of City matches. Given Haaland not in my team, I don't like horror movies. So, I won't be able to comment there. But yeah, I think the hype mind, like you said, probably is taking the right decision there.
Yeah. Wow, man. That's going to stick with me for a long time. You don't like watching horror movies. Nice one. All right, great. So I think, yeah, I agree with you guys. Guardiola should be there. Yeah, Onana, I think, people do, obviously these numbers are impacted by 10 million managers, right? We're not talking about the great managers like, Devank and Apoorv that we have on the podcast today. But both of you guys were pretty vocal about it, right? Onana should be down. When we were making this chart before we started recording today's podcast, both of these guys, no, Onana should be down. I mean, no way. So, like, what's your take there? I think he's a big, bulky guy, definitely very physically imposing, passes the eye test. But what is it about him that I'm probably missing here?
Yeah, to be fair, I think to Nana, I think he has performed well. He has the XGI to back his overall points. But essentially, he's a defensive midfielder. He has scored 3 goals in his entire life before this season. I don't expect as a defensive midfielder probably him getting a lot many points. Probably at most he can score 7, 8, 9 goals in a season. But given his uh, his price is pretty low. Probably if people fancy that kind of value, I think probably they should take it. But I think they're not good enough.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a fair shout out, yeah. And that's the thing with the CDMs, right? Unfortunately, some of the most legendary players in the league. I'm talking about the physical game of football, not the fantasy edition of it. Like you've had the likes of Yaya Toure in the past. You always had guys like of course even today like you have guys like Declan Rice. You have Rodri. You have Thomas Partey when he was really playing well. But you do have these really high impact. Like you have Enzo at Chelsea,
How
right,
many
and
goals
Endo
did
at
Rice?
Liverpool.
How
Sorry.
many
And
goals
they,
did Rice score last season?
Yeah. So So basically, these guys are usually a little difficult to fit into your FPL team, right? Because just by the nature of the kind of points that they get. Although this year I do have some hope that we might see more points, at least bonus points, because of the interceptions, tackles, key interceptions that they make. Typically, a lot of games are won and lost in the midfield, right? So yeah, I mean, let's see. But yeah, you're right. I guess Onana should probably be here. Palmer, right? Another one of those international injury tag players. So, Devang, what's your take on him?
I mean, being a Chelsea fan, it's tough to not have a Chelsea player in my team. So I got him for Bruno, and I mean the fixtures are there. He's not in the squad for the Conference League also. He's only going to be playing in the Premier League. He's one of the very, very, very few nailed players that we have. And probably things are going in the right direction right now. So I might, if I have the budget for it, I might go there for the next 3, 4 weeks. I mean, after that, I don't think you might have the budget for him and take it from
Yeah,
there. But I
fair enough. And do you see him breaching the 11 million mark this year?
if he goes on a run of like 2, 3 good games, there might be a lot of buying, especially if Saka and Foden and all flop over the next couple of weeks. There could be a standout 10 million option because almost everybody has a slot for a 10 million player. But if nobody raises their hand, everybody might start flocking towards Palmer, which
Yeah.
might lead to a couple of price rises.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And what was your take last week, last game week rather, when for Madueke's hat trick, it was Palmer. Sorry, it was a game before that. He basically gave a hat trick of assists, and the season before where Cole Palmer was a revelation for everyone. He was scoring goals left, right, and center. Do you think this year he's going to be more of an assister, more of a chance creator, or you do think he'll be amongst the goals as well? Because end of the day, a goal is worth 2 points more than an assist, right? For a midfielder.
Last year, penalties was a very big part of Palmer's output.
Yeah.
And the Wolves match probably was an outlier given that the left back wasn't really existent in that
Yeah.
game. And Matty had very low XG shots that literally went in. Like all three of them probably combined wasn't even 1 XG. So given that it was a freak incident that led to 3 assists there and 3 goals for Medvedev. But more or less, I think given that Palmer shoots from outside the box and he performs his XG that way, I still feel that he's going to be a player who keeps getting penalties because of the trickery of Medvedev on the right and say Neto or somebody on the left. And the shots that he takes from outside the box and the penalties, he could keep getting goals as well.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you over there. I think, nevertheless, right, he will be one of those very tough decisions for managers to make, especially if you're trying to have some other heavyweights all around, right? I think for more of a balanced team like the kind of one Apoorv was talking about, where you have a lot of eights and nines, I think those kind of teams, and if I just glance through the 50 odd teams that we have in our league, I see the people with Palmer are usually the people who have an overall balanced squad, right? You don't have everything concentrated in attack, or you don't have everything concentrated in defense. But yeah, I think that is something which is it's players like Palmer that are really going to force differential moves this year, and I think that's always good for the game, right? Lewis, I think we did speak about Lewis when we spoke about Guardiol. I think you guys are saying he's a trap primarily because of his minutes, right? Or do you think it's more to do with his position, or just the expected returns that you see out of him?
So I think mostly because of the minutes. I think Pep also a week ago said that probably Lewis is playing pretty well. He's the best defender in the team, but they'll have to manage his minutes. I think probably in given Pep is Pep, and he likes to tinker around with this team a lot, and then Ule is there every game week. So probably I'm not sure. I don't want probably a defender in my team who might not play, given my otherwise bench fodder are 4.1. So yeah, I think not for me.
Yeah,
Too much,
and I
too much
think
low.
yeah, Purv, and I think see, here's the thing, right? If you have an attacker who gets subbed on, or gets to play something like 50, 60 minutes, it doesn't matter so much because they can still score. But for a defender, playing under 60 minutes is immediately very irritating, right? Because you just get the 1 point, even if the team has scored a clean sheet, and then you're just praying to the last minute that he's going to give you a random assist or something, which 99% of the times doesn't happen, right? So I think a minutes risk for a defender is always more painful than that for an attacker, in my experience. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys agree
Yeah,
with that, but yeah.
There is
no, no,
another way of
100%
looking
agree.
at it.
Yeah,
Like
Devang.
And
Walker could be the one playing the difficult games, and Lewis could be the one playing the easier games. If you have a good backup defender who could play the games where you expect City to have a tough game, like against Arsenal and all, you could keep playing Lewis for the easier fixtures where he'll get more minutes, he has chances of higher attacking returns, and then bench him for the weeks where City plays the tougher games. You could see a very high upside player for 4.5, 4.6 million, whatever his price is. So that could be one way of playing him on, I mean, buying him on a wild card. I cannot afford to do that given that I don't even have three playing defenders right now. But
Yeah,
that could be a viable strategy if somebody does look into.
yeah, definitely, Devang. I think great
no,
point
I
there.
I tried doing it through Kwanzaa, and I was rewarded with two
Mhm.
nice drops and total of 1 point. So yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
was great.
interestingly,
High
last
risk,
week
high
also
reward.
you got Kwanzaa's subbed in place of Burn, right? And Burn also gave you zero. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that is obviously going to be a risk, right? When you take these minutes risk players. But to be fair, if a player is going to be a minutes risk, especially a defender, I like the binary ones, right? Either they're going to play 0 minutes or they're going to play at least 60 minutes. It's these 45 odd minutes ones that are the most painful, right? Because they actually lock you out of someone on the bench who might have just randomly got an assist that game week. So yeah,
Right.
that's there for Lewis. Yeah. Gordon, right? I think Devank, you had some interesting points to say about Gordon before we started the podcast. So, do you and
I
Apoorv
mean,
want to
I'm
pick up the
bullish
threads
on
then? Yeah.
Newcastle in general, given that the first game they had a red card, and so we cannot take a lot into account from that. I mean, they started slow, definitely, but once Champions League starts kicking in, I keep repeating that myself with respect to Aston Villa and Newcastle, because Newcastle were in the Champions League last season. And once that started kicking in, their intensity dropped, the game style dropped. And given that they will be the ones resting this week, I mean, every week, whereas their opponents might not get the rest, they might be playing 3 days a week. It might start improving Newcastle's form and player output over the next 5, 6, 7 game weeks, and we might see. I mean, it's a punt at the end of the day, and we might find decent punts in Harvey Barnes, Isaac, Gordon, players like these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you say, Apoorv? I think I've seen even last
So
year you
my
had Gordon for a long time. This year also, I believe, you're
I
always.
started with Gordon, and though I agree with Devang, I hope not. Given I'm on the wild card, I think he's out. So so I hope he's amongst the flops, but I think hard to not agree with what you just said.
So who have you traded Gordon for, if I may ask? Or if it's a top secret, you can let me know when the game week
No, no.
deadline
So
is
I've
done.
been trying to gather value for Haaland, right? So I think I got an Mbemo or Semeo, either of these two, one of these two against for Gordon.
Yeah, interesting you say Semenyo because I think this year he's really had some crazy expected goal involvements from what I see. Last year, I think the only time people considered him was when Bournemouth had a double game week, right? And that is the one in which Dominic Solanke missed a penalty and then eventually scored a goal. And my heart goes out to those guys who had triple captained him that game. But yeah, I mean, I digress. Yeah, Semenyo is I think an interesting pick that you mentioned over there amongst the ones that you're considering. And yeah, I appreciate now that it's not really about getting Gordon out, but rather it's about getting Haaland in. So I
Yeah,
understand it's more of an economical decision, right?
He
Yeah.
was good striker for the first 2 games, but now he'll revert back given that they've already signed a striker who will replace Solanke. So you might see his output drop over the next few months.
Oh, that's an
At least he
interesting take on it. Yeah.
won't be striker anymore, at least.
Yeah. Fair enough.
but who's the
Okay. Next we
other?
have Welbeck. Oh, sorry. You still want to talk
So
about
I think who's the
Gordon?
other Bournemouth winger? I think Bournemouth as an attacking unit has done well. I think at least in the first three game weeks.
And it was very good.
Yeah. So yeah. Hopefully that continues. But yeah. See.
Yeah,
Let's see.
let's see how it goes. Yeah. So up next we have Welbeck. So again, the man, who when he plays, I think he's always a delight. And personally, I really like him as a player. Maybe not so much as an FPL asset, but what's the take here? Why have you guys said that he should be someone we should consider a trap?
So I think too many. So Bournemouth, Brighton's
But
front line is pretty exciting. I think this year Mitoma is back in form, and then you have Minte on the right who's also playing well. Then you have Yaubeto as well, and then you have Welbeck as well. So obviously the points are going to be divided in between these players, and I would just personally feel Welbeck would be the one who is going to lose out on points to the other three.
No, fair enough. Devang, anything you'd like to add to that?
I mean, Welbeck, Pedro, similar price, similar style, but Pedro has penalties, so I'd probably buy him over Welbeck, if any.
Yeah, got to agree over there. Yeah. Next to Jota, I think we did touch upon Jota earlier on. Any more thoughts on why you think he should be a punt and people are wrong to transfer him out? Please tell me they're wrong because I'm going to hold on to him for at least another
I
game
am
week.
also I am also going to hold on to Jota. And if you look at, I think his performance as well, except for the game against United,
Yeah.
I think his involvement has been pretty good in the game for both goals and assists. And given that we are playing 4-2-3-1, right, a lot of attack is getting concentrated, at the center, both from the wing and Soboslai, who's playing number 10. And Jota is a terrific finisher. So if he gets chances, he's going to bury them. So that gives me probably a lot of confidence that probably over the entire season he'll be, if not probably in the top three strikers in terms of number of points and number of goals this
Wow, that's a bold prediction, but yeah, let's see how that goes. Right. Up next, we have Robinson. I guess a couple of attacking returns, despite no clean sheets. I think that is what is nudging most of the managers out of the 10 million to go push for him. He's already had a price rise, also I guess after game week 2. So, what's your take on him? You all were pretty sure that he shouldn't really be considered a bull here. What's the logic behind that? Is it the fixtures or just something that you've seen about the way Fulham play?
season. I think Fulham defense don't go together. So uh, I think in terms of defense, Fulham, Ipswich, and FO in Nottingham Forest. I don't see how their players are going to, and Southampton as well, how they're going to hold their defense together. I think last season as well, probably one of the worst defense in the league. That is from a team perspective. I probably Robinson could be a standout, but from a team's perspective, I think Fulham is going to drop points
So,
from a different point of view.
So, Apoorv, there is one black sheep in that you mentioned there. Nottingham Forest, you'd be surprised outside of the top four, right? They were right up there. I think along with Brentford, Nottingham Forest, they were the top 6 or 7 teams for the least amount of goals, expected goals conceded. Where that does not reflect in terms of common understanding is because there were a lot of games in which Nottingham Forest conceded 1-1 goal, right? So that is why basically the clean sheets did not come. You didn't have their goalkeeper and defenders get the points. But I think defensively they are very solid, and I think we are seeing some of those trends this year as well. I mean, Devank, I don't know if you have a different point of view over there, but yes, I agree with you on the other teams. I don't think defensively Fulham, Ipswich, and Southampton are the kind of teams you want to go for. But I'm still a little going to be a little careful about Nottingham Forest over there. Might
I
just
mean,
get some value 4.5s.
probably, I mean, their defense is way higher than their league table standing is. I'll
Yeah.
probably start looking at them, especially because they've brought in a very tall defender to address the set piece problem that they had last year, where even the easiest of set piece they used to concede, and that is what led to more goals being conceded than the XGC. So
You're talking about the goalkeeper, right? But is Miguel going to start?
that was also a problem. But then they bought a goalkeeper, but he's not the
Yeah, he's not
he's
starting, right? That's what. Yeah.
no, he's just a he was very cheap, so they just got him in. They're like mini Chelsea. If you find a player that you like, you just buy and just figure out later.
Yeah.
But I think the new defender is going to add, I mean, some depth to defending set plays and all, and they could do well. I mean, Sales is a good buy for the wild card. If you're
Yeah.
wildcarding now or game week 6 for the long term. And Robinson is somebody I wouldn't actively look to sell or buy. If you have him, like I have him, I'm very happy to play him every week. They have a they have a decent run of 2-3 games still left to go. And then on wildcard you might just like dump him and move on from.
Yeah, so just before the game week 1 deadline of this season, we have another guy Rohit Murthy in our league this year who was asking me, should I go for Robinson, should I, or some other 4.5. I told him, boss, go for Robinson, but don't message me when Fulham lose a clean sheet, because you're not buying him for the clean sheets, right? You're buying him for the assists, and each time Robinson assists, I actually message him. See, I told you, I told you, right? So yeah, I guess yeah. Yeah, spot on. There are some players you just buy, like Pedro Porro, for example, right? He gets a clean sheet for me. That's like unexpected. I consider it a goal, right? When Pedro Porro keeps a clean sheet, for me it's a goal. But the man goes out there and scores goals anyway, right? So yeah, there are some players you just buy for the attacking upside, right? And I agree. I think Robinson is one of those players. I also have him. Possibly won't sell him right now. Let me see once the fixtures begin to turn or something. But yeah, my heart breaks looking at this Odegaard, right? One of the real genuine injuries. No question about it, right? If you have him, unfortunately, you need to sell him now. That does look like a bad injury. And of course, not the best fixtures coming up for Arsenal, right? With Tottenham and City up next. So yeah, we're losing Odegaard at a very critical time. And yeah, I don't think anyone should be buying him right now, although he's a wonderful player overall. I think Bemo is an interesting one, and people have latched onto him because he did get a lot of points. And I think Bemo was instrumental in getting Pratik the manager of the month for August, right? So, what's your take on him? You guys are bullish on him. Would you all consider buying him on a wild card right now, or what's the thought process there?
He passes the eye test. He's strong. He can dribble. He can run. He's fast, and he's scoring. I think what's not to like. So probably I'm going to bring him in. I think for
So, does
captain.
Tony's departure make him a better, worse, or indifferent hold for you?
No, I think Tony is a selfish striker. So probably Tony not being there would add to Mbomo's points output.
Okay.
Given that it's a team game after all, right? If you are up, somebody else has already scored. You probably play a little bit more defensive. Uh, so I think it's going to add to Mbomo's overall points. At least I hope so.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think Solanke, we touched upon him. I guess, unfortunately, he's still flagged. I'm not sure if he's going to be back. Any thoughts there? It's pretty straightforward that he should be an avoid at this point.
I
He's
mean, I
good. I
would
think.
buy him once he starts getting stricter. I mean, and Postecoglou team, sole striker. I mean, I would probably go there as soon as he's fit. Just win my game week 1 spot. He's one of the reasons I don't have Haaland. Haaland
Yeah.
was downgraded to Solanke too fit because I was dead set on Isaac and Havertz.
Yeah.
So I'm still looking to get him in once he
Yeah.
starts playing a couple of games. And his Richarlison is not a very big one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when Spurs demolished Everton, right, where Son was playing as a striker, I think for those of you who own Solanke, I mean, you should actually look at those as points that Solanke should have got, right? At least you can say half of those points should have, in a fair world, gone to Solanke, because typically that's the position he would be playing at. We know how lethal he was for Bournemouth, right? So we know he's a proven FPL asset, proven EPL asset as well. So yeah, I mean, let's see. I agree with you. I think once he's back, he should definitely be on a lot more radars than he currently is. So I'm just going to pull the last two players simultaneously, and we can talk about it. Mitoma and Pedro Porro. We've already mentioned these guys a couple of times. So yeah, over to you guys for the comments on them.
I got in Mitoma last game week, and again he's amongst the points. Last game week he was not involved, at least from a points point of view. But in the game, I think it looked pretty solid. I think both the wingers together, both Minte and Mitoma, they are passing to each other a lot, uh, and I think he'll be among points. At least all front three for Brighton should be amongst points. So yeah, I think I like him. I like him.
But won't the logic apply over here of getting the points divided, right? Like what you said for some other players and other teams. Don't you think points are
No,
going to be divided here?
no. So the difference here is if the team is going to do well, and probably one game week Mitoma will get, the other game week Minte will get
Ah,
points, but overall I think they'll all get points. But
right.
if there are 3-4 players there and one player is lesser of the others, right? So probably he is going to be start of points from the other three.
I got it. That's a wonderful analogy. Thanks, man. Yeah, that's helpful. Devank, what's your take on Mitoma?
I mean, I like Mitoma as a player, but then Brighton again. I mean, Mitoma is one of the surefire starters in that team, but like I am going to be wildcarding. I mean, I'm not going to be wildcarding very soon. So I don't want players just for the next couple of game weeks. But if you're on a plan to wildcard in say 6-ish, you might target. I mean, Brighton are top of the ticker in the next 2-3 game weeks. You might look to get Mitoma, Pedros, and all for the next couple of game weeks before you wildcard them out and probably score a lot of points there.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And finally, moving on to Pedro Porro, right? The 10th most transferred out player this game week, seemingly for no fault of his own, although he is playing Arsenal next. And there are a few, I think, budget options. People are probably trying to free up money from defense to go into some of the midfield upgrades. So, what's your take on Porro? It's still a good hold, or what do you say? Don't buy, don't sell kind of player, or what? Yeah.
Pedro Porro is a player you buy, you play him every week. Don't look at the match, don't look at anything. Just check his score and skip because they might never keep a clean sheet, but he'll score any random match against any random opponent. Like I wouldn't even bench him against a team like Arsenal. Like there's a decent chance he might spike up anywhere, score. So I'll play him all the weeks. Probably never sell, never bench. But I
Yeah.
like him as
Yeah, I tend to agree there. Although I wouldn't play him against Arsenal just for personal reasons, but not from a rational reason. Definitely, I think he's going to be amongst the points. I think against Arsenal, just have that kind of feeling.
I think it's a better matchup. If Arsenal was a fully fit squad, would have been different. But a half depleted Arsenal, I might not bench him.
Yeah, fair enough. What's your take, Apoorv?
No, I agree. Probably I'll not take him for the next 3 game weeks. After the United game, probably I'll try to bring him in. But otherwise, I think attackingly he gets a lot of points, gets into right positions. Um, so Poro is somebody probably I owned last year as well. This year, again, unfortunately, I started with the hangover of last season when I thought probably defense doesn't matter. Let's go with all 4.5s, and the rule change a lot of things. I think for me, so sometime I'm going to bring him in. Probably not immediately though.
Fair enough. Great. So I think that's a wrap from the Bulls and Bears perspective. Thanks a lot, Apoorv and Devank. I think this was a lot of fun. Do you guys have any closing thoughts, comments? Because we have missed FPL action for almost 2 weeks now. So, any closing comments, thoughts before we wrap up episode 4?
I mean, thank you so much for having me on. This is my first podcast ever, so it was really fun.
Oh yeah, the
And
pleasure is all mine, Devank. Yeah, I mean, I also realized, till last year I knew most of the people. Right, we had 34 people in the league. I knew most of them personally. I would say 80-90%. But this year it was like wow. I mean, it was between Azur and me asking each other, "Hey, do you know this guy? Do you know this guy?" And we're both like, "Okay, finally, our league has reached a stage where people whom we don't know as first level contacts are joining in, which is like kind of feels nice to go there. And obviously it's great to have people like you on the podcast along with old timers like Apoorv who've been there, done this before. And I just like that's why we thought that we should have two people at once, right, instead of just a one-on-one, because then you get some of these conflicting, contrarian views, and yeah, that just enriches it for everyone. So yeah, thanks a lot, Devank, for
But
joining. Yeah,
but really, thank you, Jeff, for doing this. I think it's going to help the entire league. understand other people, other players really well. I really thank you for having me here. I think it's a good, very good initiative. It's going to strengthen, I think, the league further, and probably more players in the future seasons. The more, the better. But yeah, like you said, I think after a long international break, just
Yeah.
hearing to and waiting for the weekend to come so that I can just see Liverpool score some more goals.
Yeah, man. No, good luck. Good luck to your respective teams. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the league tables. Take care, guys.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Bye. See you. Good night. Thanks, Devang.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot.
Bye. Bye.